Hi everybody and welcome to my next tutorial, and my name is Maltena, and today we're going to create some Web 2.0 effects, a button to be more specific, in Adobe Photoshop and in Adobe After Effects. So let's just start with the Photoshop part, and let's create new document 640 by 480, that's okay, and let's create a new layer. Let's call this a button, and let me just turn on the grid. So go to View, Show, Grid, and we're going to use the rounded rectangle tool. Let me just draw a rectangle. As you can see, we have this this box already visible in here. We're using paths so we can make adjustments easily later on. The basic thing about this tutorial is that we're not going to use any painting. We're just going to use blending modes so we can make the adjustments easily without having to redraw everything. Let me just bring this layer style option dialog in here, and let's start by creating a drop shadow, distance 0 and size maybe about 20 or so. And next step, we're going to apply a stroke effect. Size is okay. Let's change the color to white, and that's okay. Next thing, we're going to apply gradient overlay effect, and let's just go to the gradient palette and let's change the colors from, let's change the white to red, something like this. I think that should be okay. And now we have a basic outline of the button, and now we need to create this glossy or plastic look above the button. So to do that, let's just create a new layer, and now hold Alt and drag the path mask to the layer above, and now we're going to fill this layer with whatever the color, and we would like this to be filled inside the mask, and I will explain why a bit later. So let's Control click on the mask to get the selection, and Alt delete to fill with whatever the color. Control D to deselect. Okay, now let's turn the fill parameter to 0. And why is that? This is because we would like to use some blending options to create this gradient gloss, as well as we did with the button, and we couldn't do that if the fill was set to 100, because then the gradient would overlap the color that we filled the layer with, and we filled the layer according to the selection because we would like the align with layer option to behave like we would expect it, right? So when align with layer is turned on and the scale is set to 100, then we get a gradient from this point to this point. Never mind, let's just set the gradient type to white transparent, and this is okay. Let's just reverse the gradient, maybe let's move it up a bit and scale it down, I think, and this is okay. Now if you look closely, we have this not so pretty edge around the gradient, and we are going to deal with this a bit later. First of all, let's just create this curve that should go in here, and we're going to use our path mask as well, vector mask, and let's just zoom in and use direct selection tool to see the vertices. Yes, we need to get rid of these vertices, mostly because we want this to be a straight line as a starter. So let's use delete anchor point. Let's delete this one and this one, and now we can turn the grid back on and we can adjust the points. So let's just grab this and drag it to the point that we're interested in, and we should also grab this vertex too and drag it to the position that we're interested in. And the same goes for this one. I believe it was something like this. And now we can use this modifier to create a straight line. And this looks good. And now we can just move it down a bit. Move it down a bit so we get this symmetrical. And I think that's just about right. And now we can move this a bit upwards. Let me turn off the grid right now because it gets in the way. And let's see how it looks. Well, I think it looks pretty nice. This is something that we are looking for. And now, to get rid of this nasty edge in here, we can go back to our vector mask and just move it aside a bit, and then move this vertex up a bit, and the same goes for this part. So like this and like this. And now we can fill the layer with whatever color, again by control clicking in here, or just by by making a selection that is close to the button and just fill with layers. So Alt delete with whatever the color. Let me just zoom out from this, and this looks nice already. We can still make some adjustments like this. That looks okay. At least I'm satisfied with this. And okay, now let's import a logo that will go on the button, and this is it. By the way, as you can see, this is a smart clip or smart object because this is an Illustrator file, and I would like this to be white. And as you probably know, you can't make adjustments to this, of course, without using Adobe Illustrator, and I don't want to use Adobe Illustrator at this point. I would just like to make this white, and I cannot use Alt Delete to fill this with whatever color I like because this is a smart object. So what can I do? Well, I can go to blending options again and use color overlay, and we're going to set the color to white. Let's just move this below the glass. Let's just call this glass to make things easier to read, to understand. And let's move this up, and this looks nice already. Control T to scale it down. Enter to confirm. And voila. There you go. And the cool thing about this is that you can always go to gradient overlay and change the color to whatever you like. Let's say blue, for example, dark blue. And that looks nice also. You can also change the opacity of the glass. So let's make this 50, for example. No, maybe 70. So this effect may be controlled in many different ways. You can always adjust the drop shadow, or you can create a bevel, and you can do many things with this. And okay, now let's move to the After Effects part of the tutorial, and we're going to create basically the same effect using my presets that you can find on my website in a tutorial called Photoshopping in After Effects. And these are the presets, and we don't really need to use those really, because we can also use the simplified version, so the ramp effect as far as the gradient is concerned. But just in case you're used to using Photoshop, I will show you how you can use those presets. And okay, let's just start by creating a new composition. 640 by 480, that's okay. Let's call this, and let's just create a new solid that is going to be our outline. 480 by 240, I guess that's okay, or maybe by 180. Okay, now we need to create rounded corners for this one. So let's just turn on show grid. Let's just zoom in. We can also just press the tilde to have this in full view. It would be much easier to control. And let me just move this down a bit so we match the grid. Okay. And now we're going to double click on the rectangular mask tool. So we create a rectangular mask that matches the size of the solid. And we're going to use a pen tool to create some additional points. Like so. The grid helps a lot in this case. And we're going to delete those corners. Oh, I forgot about this one. Okay, and now we're going to do rounded corners for this. So alt click on the vertex and just drag the curve so it creates a rounded corner. Like so. Alt dragging to create rounded corners. Okay, we can now go back and let's call this button, and let's duplicate this layer, and let's call this one stroke, and let's use my Photoshop stroke preset, and this behaves pretty similar to what you're used to in Photoshop. Let's set the color to white. I think the size is okay. We don't see the stroke because the background is white as well. So let's apply some drop shadow effect on the stroke layer. That's right. Distance 0 and softness maybe something like this. We can turn off the grid right now. Hide grid. Okay. And next thing, we're going to apply Photoshop gradient overlay. Set the degrees to 90 and let's change the color to red to black. That's okay. And let's set the size and let's move the gradient anchor point. Something like this should do, I think. And now we're going to create this gloss over the button. So let's just duplicate this layer. Let's call this gloss, and we can get rid of all these effects because we are not going to use them anyway. And now let's create another duplicate of this layer, and let's call this mask. This is going to be our mask for the glass. So let's just turn this off for now. And this is supposed to be white, so let's apply solid color, I think. Yes, see solid color. And white, that's okay. And let's go to linear wipe effect, which is a transition effect. But we can use this to create a ramp, basically, that goes from opaque to transparent, and this is okay. Let's turn the wipe angle to 90. That's right. And now we're going to set the track matte for this layer to the mask, alpha matte mask. Now we need to make some adjustments to the mask, so we can just cut it in half like we did in Photoshop, and then create this this curve that goes through the middle. So let's just lock these layers so we don't select their masks by accident. And let's just zoom in. And we can also turn on the grid again And now let's just make a selection so we can just move this up a bit. And we can also get rid of these points. So we have a straight line going just through the middle. And now we need to make some adjustments to those points. So let's just select one point to be sure, and take the pen tool and Alt drag to make adjustments. And you also need to adjust the second control point so it doesn't just go away like it did. And by the way, I can never learn what to do, because the pen tool behaves a bit different than it does in Photoshop and in Illustrator, and it always gives me different results when I press different modifier keys, and I just can't understand it. Well, I should probably read the manual, but it's just a matter of few clicks, and just making a few clicks and reading the manual is like way too much. So I'm always experimenting with the pen tool, really. Okay, now we need to get rid of these nasty edges also. So let's just hit Control. Yes, that's right. And let's just move this to the side, and the same with this one. Move them to the side, and those upper ones we need to move a bit higher. That's right, but that's not all, because these hard edges, as you can see, they are not anti-aliased, are created by the ramp effect on the button layer. So we need to go to the button layer, open Colorama, and go to Modify, and uncheck Modify Alpha. Let me just scroll to this area so you can see. Voila. And everything looks smooth and nice. Let's just hide the grid and zoom out. And this is it. We should also change the mask of the glass layer, because this is equal to the button mask, and this is why we have this edge still visible in here. And we could just copy the mask from the mask layer. So let's just select the mask shape, just turn on mask visible tool to be sure, and press Ctrl C to copy. Go to glass layer, select mask shape, and press Ctrl V to paste it. And I think that's just about it. We've also altered the gradient, because of the linear wipe is based on percentage, but I don't think it makes much of a difference. Next, let's just put some logo inside the button, which is actually my company's logo that I've started up with my friends. You can read about it in here. A bit of a history, yeah. Okay, and let's just scale it down a bit. So press S to reveal scale properties, scale it down, move it down a bit, and let's use solid color again on this layer to set it to white. Maybe let's add some drop shadow. Just zoom in. Distance 0, softness, that's right, and maybe let's pump the opacity to 100. And voila, that's it. And I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial, and I'm planning to do a 3D tutorial so I could show you how you can turn a 2D object, text, shape, this button, whatever it is, and just to extrude it like you would do in a 3D program, so you can get 3D objects. So you could just put the camera inside and rotate it a bit. Let me just turn those to 3D layers. So we could do something like this and don't get this flat effect. So, but I just need to check some things out before I record the tutorial. So be patient, stay tuned. Thanks for watching. See you next time. Cheers.